Hello there, welcome to Inkquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Pen Resurrection Sunday video. Today's pen on the slab is this circa 1960s Parker 45. They didn't date code these things, so it's just a guess, but I picked this up at a local antique store just before Christmas. And I wanted to take a look at it to see what it needs to be restored. I've restored one of these already previously, and you can see that video by clicking right up there. But let's take a look at this one and see what it needs. It's got some wear on it. What's challenging is getting stainless steel, especially brushed stainless steel, back into nice new condition again. It takes some special tools that I don't have. But I'm going to see what I can do with maybe some quadruple O steel wool or something like that to see whether I can get some of these abrasions out of that surface. The gold plated hardware seems to be in fairly good shape, but could use some polishing. The end finial has some chew marks on it. That's plastic, so I can fix that. On the back it has the Parker logo, made in the USA, 45 Parker, 45. These were introduced in the 1960s by Parker and were one of the first cartridge converter pens available. And that's how they named the Parker 45. They called it the 45 to basically copy the Colt 45, that it took cartridges in that gun. And this pen is the Parker 45, and it takes cartridges like bullets. And you can see that there's some good amount of wear on this pen, but these Parker 45s were really beautifully designed. I think Don Doman designed the Parker 45, and the Flighter is one of the nicest of the range of 45s. They're inexpensive to collect, and the Flighter I think is the nicest of the line. Pull the cap off and we see a long plastic section with a semi-hooded nib, typical of the 45. Lots of abrasion and wear, but that is a 14 karat gold nib right there. I've rinsed it a little bit to get all the old ink out of it. It says it's a fine on here, but that's a lot of tipping material, so I'm hoping that that writes nicely. These are easy to disassemble. There is no cartridge or converter with this, but this will take Parker cartridges or Parker converters. But I've also found that Penbbs converters work on these Parker 45s as well. I think the Parker 45 is probably the best posting fountain pen ever designed. Look at how sleek that is in the hand posted. To take the nib apart, you just unscrew the nib unit. It's still got some old ink in it here. And there's the feed unit there. And this is just a collector in here. You can rinse that out. Very, very simple. And then you just pull this collar back right here, and there's our gold nib. Let's take that off and take a look at the nib. And it says 14K Parker, made in the USA. No date codes and lots of wear on that nib. So we're going to polish that up so that it looks brand new. We'll rinse all these parts out in the ultrasonic bath of pen flush, which is 9 parts distilled water. And then there's the section unit with the gold clutch ring. I think that comes off, and it doesn't have to come off. Yeah, it does. There we go. There we go. Remember which direction it goes on, because it won't work the other way. So there are all of our parts. This end finial is screwed in there, but I've had those break on me before. So I'm not going to try to unscrew that. We have to polish out some of those divots in there as well. There's no need to get that clip off, and I know that once they're off, they're sort of difficult to get back on again. There's the clutch inside the cap. So I'm going to rinse this all out, dry it, and then we'll go at polishing that nib first, and then we'll do a dip test to see how well that nib writes and see whether it needs any tweaking. And here are all our parts out of the pen flush bath. And I'm going to put this 14 karat gold nib on my buffer and then polish it up with my jewelry polishing cloth. And that's after some buffing with my Dremel tool buffer, and we'll polish it a little bit more on my polishing cloth. That's looking pretty good. Wow, gotta love gold. These are the easiest pens to take apart, put back together again. Fits into a little slot right there, and then you just slide the collar back on. And now I'm going to put the whole thing back together again before we polish anything up. Just screw that back on, and I'm going to get a Penbbs Converter. That fits right in there perfectly. Not going to fill it with ink yet, but it fits. I'm going to dip test this nib and see what it requires, if anything. And because there's no latex sac or diaphragm involved in the Parker 45, it's a straight cartridge converter pen. You can put any ink you want into it without fear of any parts degrading, just like a modern pen. But because I use Waterman on all my vintage pens, might as well stay with the Waterman. So let's find out what kind of writer this is going to be. I'm just going to call it a 1960s Parker 45 Flighter. Check the wetness here. Ooh, very wet. And it's smooth, but a lot of feedback. I'm just wondering what kind of line this is. It says fine on the back, but that would be a Western fine. So let's see what it measures out at. Yep, I think that's bang on 0.5 millimeters or a Western fine, 14 karat gold nib. And that's from my Richard Binder line width chart, which you can find linked in the description again, because he changed the designation of the file on his website, and for quite a few months I didn't have the chart available online because I thought he had taken it down. But thanks to a viewer, I've got the link again, and so you can find it in the description below. And that chart looks like this. You can print it out for yourself. It's a PDF, and it shows all the line widths in inches and millimeters and what they would be in Western and typical Japanese gradings. So this has a bit of scratch going that way, and the tines are perfectly aligned. So I'm going to grab some Micromesh and smooth it out. And I'm just going to go from 8,000 grit to 12,000 grit here. A little water as a lubricant, and we're just going to go up and down, side to side, northeast to southeast, northwest to southwest, counterclockwise, counterclockwise, and figure eights, up and down, about 8 strokes each. And that's much better. I'm going to go at it with the 12,000 grit as well. Oh yeah, that's ultra smooth now. Very nice writer. Now we know it's writing perfectly. Let's polish it up so it looks brand new, if we can. I'm going to experiment with that stainless steel because it's brushed. We'll see whether I can smooth out some of those abrasions without specialty tools. And we'll do some micromesh on the plastic parts, and probably need to use some 400 grit sandpaper to get those gouges out of there. Looks like someone's teeth marks. Yep. And there we are after the 400 grit. Got most of the divots out, I think all of them, and we can see how well it polishes under micromesh. And there we are after some micromesh and some polish. Not too bad. There is one tooth mark right there that was so deep. If I sanded it anymore, it would go lower than that chrome barrel, and it would look deformed if I went any deeper. But that actually looks pretty good, better than it did. So now I'm going to mask that off with some masking tape, and then go at this barrel with some steel wool, see whether I'm going to ruin it or it's going to look better. We'll see. There, I didn't get all the abrasions out. See, there are some scratches right there, but I polished it with some quadruple O steel wool and tried to keep it going in the same direction as the brushed steel marks, and it looks pretty good. And I put some metal polish on it as well and got some grime off it. And here's the cap. You probably can't tell, but I can tell that there's a difference. This one's brighter than this one is, so we'll go at the cap as well with the same treatment. So here we are all cleaned up. I was able to get some of those abrasions out, so it's not as noticeable as it was. There is a dent there that you can't do anything about, but it's cleaned up very nicely. That end finial looks very good and new, and I particularly like how the section has come up nice and gleaming and new, and of course that gold nib. So now I'm going to fill it up with the Penbbs Converter, which is the same size as a Parker converter. Post the pen because these pens beg to be posted. And let's do a writing sample again. 1960s Parker 45, 14 karat gold, fine nib, lots of wetness, and now that I smoothed it out with some micromesh, it's very smooth indeed. As I said earlier, I restored one of these pens last year sometime, and I sold that pen, and I always kind of regretted it because it writes so beautifully. So I'm thinking of selling this pen, but I'm going to write with it for a while first and see how much I enjoy it. I'm enjoying it right now, and it would be a great knockabout pen. As it is, it would probably sell for $50 to $60 US in its current condition, which is close to brand new. Few abrasions here and there, but a beautiful section and a beautiful smooth gold nib, all cleaned up. So I was anxious to get this pen writing again to see whether I wanted to keep it or not. And the pen was fairly easy and uncomplicated to restore. So this pen was never really dead, so it didn't need resurrection, but some renovation, let's say, and getting it nice and pretty and clean and usable for an everyday carry fountain pen. So stay tuned to my Wix page where I sell pens to see whether I'm going to give this one up. But for now, this is a shorty resurrection, and I'll probably put this out on a day other than Sunday. I've called this a Pen Resurrection Sunday video, but it might actually go up on another day because I've got a backlog of pens that I want to restore and people are clamoring for. So look for this on a Pen Resurrection Wednesday or a Pen Resurrection Tuesday. I'll have to come up with a new name for these shorty resurrections. Whenever it goes up, I appreciate you watching, so it just leaves it for me to say thank you for watching. Ooh, this is nice. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.